Hi, I'm Dr. Darren Fitzpatrick. Name of my practice is Natural Solutions Health Improvement Center, and I want you to watch the next video and learn something about how you can take care of yourself naturally. Hi, it's Dr. Darren again. I just wanted to come to you and share with you a real effective tool that we use with our patients to help them in their health journey. And it's a diet journal or food journal. So I have all of my patients, when they first start with me, start tracking their food, because food is really what's going to keep you well in the long run. I have 19 different lines of supplements that I use in my practice, ranging from herbs through whole food supplements and homeopathic remedies. Those are the things that really get people well in the short term. But in the long term, we really want to keep people well through their diet. The reason they're in the situation they're in when they come in my front door is because of food, frankly, the way they've been eating for most of their life. So we really have to correct some of those things, and it's more of a lifestyle situation than putting them on a diet. So I always work with people with what they're already eating and try to modify that to the best that we can to maximize their improvement while they're doing a nutrition program in my office. So one of the things that a food journal does for patients is help them make changes and achieve goals. So week to week or every other week or so, when I'm seeing the patients, I'm reading through their food journal with them and giving them an idea on what they can change to actually maximize their progress. So for example, if somebody's eating 25 Oreos last week and they write it down because they're a good, truthful patient, they know it's going to help them, I look at that and depending on how fast I think they can change, I'll make a suggestion for a goal for the next week. So potentially it's eat 20 Oreos next week. So that's how people can achieve those goals over time. So it's not like, let's cut the Oreos out altogether. It just makes a gradual change for them. It's much easier for us to make those gradual changes. So the food journal helps with that. It also keeps patients accountable. So, when you're writing something down and you know somebody else is going to be looking at it and keeping you accountable for what you're doing, it kind of keeps you in line, and you may be looking at that donut and saying, that donut looks good, but if I eat it, I'm going to have to write it down, and Dr. Darren's going to be seeing it. So that actually helps us in our favor too. So the less sugar a patient eats over time, the less they're going to desire sugar, and the less sweet food is actually going to appeal to them. So that does help, but it's that accountability measure that actually comes from the food journal that's really powerful as well. It also gives the patients an objective overview of what they've been eating. So if somebody's not feeling good, say they're a week into their food journal and they haven't been feeling good for a couple of days, they can go back on their food journal and see maybe what they were doing right before they started feeling bad, and it can give them some objectivity on what foods may be causing them problems. It also allows me to look at that and track their symptoms and possibly associate it with a food or a lifestyle factor that they've been doing on an ongoing basis, and it's just been keeping them sick over a long period of time. And it may be something that we think is probably healthy for them. As an example, I have a patient who every time he ate cauliflower, he got an upset stomach and he couldn't sleep. So we started looking at that, and we did some testing on him and found out that he was sensitive to cauliflower. So I just recommended he keep it out of his diet for a while and let his body come back to normalcy, and we tried it later, and he did okay with it. So the food journal actually helped us determine that. So you can find out some really neat things just doing a food journal and looking back at what you've been eating and how you've been feeling. It also tracks hydration, which is really very important. I always have all my patients track how much water they're drinking every day in ounces, because we kind of have a guideline that we go by, and I like my patients as a just kind of as a standard to drink half their body weight in ounces. So if you weighed 140 pounds, you'd want to drink 70 ounces of water as a baseline, and then depending on your activities, bump that up. If you're working out or working out outside, doing some gardening or sweating or doing a lot of talking like I do, I like talking, you lose a lot of moisture that way. So you want to drink more water in those cases. But as a baseline, it should be half your body weight in ounces. And we track that over time and just encourage our patients to drink more water. That's one of the easiest things you can do to actually improve your health. Most of us are dehydrated. And if you're chronically dehydrated, you lose that thirst reflex. So you really don't feel thirsty either. So you kind of have to almost force that upon yourself and get your body used to intaking water again. And lastly, we also track bowel function on the food journal. So we're looking at bowel movements, quantity and quality. And if there's changes in that, or if I see a kind of a chronic constipation situation going on that the patient isn't really aware of. I mean, some people think that pooping every 3 or 4 days is normal. I got to tell you, it's not. You should be pooping at least once a day, preferably more than that. We talk about poop a lot in the office as well. So the bowel functions are really important for people to get well. And if they're not sleeping right and their bowels aren't working, they're not getting enough water. Those are really baseline factors that factor into somebody's wellness. So those things we really have to address, and we track all of that on a food journal. So it gives us a lot of information that we can follow up with the patient on their follow-up visits and make sure things are going correctly. If all of those are coming in line and their food is getting to a point where we know that they're eating a diet that's going to keep them healthy for the rest of their life, we discontinue the food journal. So we do it until we don't have to do it anymore. And that differs patient to patient. Some patients come into my office and they're already eating a very healthy diet. And we just have to, tweak what they're doing just a little bit for their individuality. That's another thing. All of us are individuals, and we're all going to respond differently to different diets. So there's not one diet that I prefer or prescribe. That's why the food journal is great. We see what they're actually eating, and we can work with them on what they're eating. So those are just a few tips on why we actually like using food journals. And we know that it accounts for over half of a patient's improvement. So they're so important. And so if you're doing a food journal, do it correctly and make sure you're tracking everything. As another example, I've had patients that chew gum and they don't write their gum down on their food journal, and their gum is full of artificial sweeteners. So artificial sweeteners are neurotoxic in our body, and they can slow your progress down or bring it to a halt or actually make you worse. So if there's a little hidden things in your diet like that, gum is part of your diet, that can actually influence what's going on, and that can give us some kind of insights into what you're doing. So make sure you're doing it correctly, and if you're a patient of mine, make sure you're bringing it in so we can actually talk about food on your visits. Get the most out of your nutrition visits and make the progress that you really want. All right, thank you.